I remember the exact second everything tilted. 7:12 p.m., October 26, 2025. Boston rain tapping the kitchen window like impatient fingers. I was stacking gala apples into the fruit bowl when Jonah Harper said, almost casually, "She's not my child." The sentence landed like a dropped glass, and the sound hollowed out the whole room. I felt my fingers go slick on the orange peel. I heard the fridge humming and the clock on the oven click. 7:12. I knew the layout of our life by muscle memory. Emma's crayon marks on the pantry door, Jonah's campaign flyers folded in the junk drawer. And in that instant, it all felt wrong. He wouldn't meet my eyes. His voice had that accidental softness people use when confessing something they think will explain, not destroy. Before I could force the why out of him, the doorbell cut through us. Sharp, deliberate, 3 rings at 7:13. Jonah's hand trembled on the knob like someone caught mid-theft. He opened the door to a man with a navy pea coat, collar wet, eyes patient, as if he'd been rehearsing this moment in the rain.
"Ethan Cole," the man said. "First Meridian, Boylston Street." He spoke like someone used to reading rooms and delivering bad news. He set a small velvet box on my counter, as if it were evidence. "One question," he told us, voice low, everything in it measured. "Do you still love him?" The pause he let breathe between the words felt like the sharper thing of all. I thought of our wedding at St. Cecilia's in June 2014, Jonah's laugh over too many beers, the night in March when his coat smelled faintly of perfume and he said he'd stayed late. I thought of Emma's freckled nose and the way she hums the Cubs song at breakfast, even though we live in Cambridge. Ethan opened the velvet box. Inside lay a brass key, ordinary and stupidly small. He said it opened safe deposit box 43B at First Meridian, Boylston Street branch, and that inside were names, dates, receipts, photos. My mouth filled with a dry, hot feeling. My heart felt like a fist. Jonah sagged as if someone had drawn a curtain across him. I laughed, a short, raw sound that surprised me more than it did him. Betrayal is a physical thing. It shows up in the throat first, and then the knees. Ethan's coat flapped in the doorway as he stepped back into the drizzle. He left the box and a manila envelope on the island, and then watched me, as if waiting to see what the sensible person would do next. I picked up the envelope. On top was a Polaroid with a date written in black marker, May 9th, 2025. Jonah stood in it, arm around a woman I didn't know. Her eyes in the photo were the mirror of Emma's. I wrote one word on an index card. List. Because habit makes plans when the world fractures. Rain kept tapping the window. The oven clock blinked 7:16. I set the brass key beside the Polaroid and felt, with a cold, clean certainty, that this was the beginning of removing a life built on a lie. It was 9:04 a.m. the next morning when I stepped off at Boylston Street, gray November wind slicing down the common, newspaper corners flapping like nervous hands. First Meridian smelled of citrus soap and old paper. Ethan Cole met me at the counter in a gray suit, manila envelope under his arm. "This'll take 10 minutes, he said, voice flat. He didn't look like a hero. He looked like someone who had been carrying a burden he wanted to pass on. Box 43B opened with a metallic click that felt loud enough to wake the dead. Ethan handed me a manila folder. On top, a Polaroid stamped May 9, 2025. Jonah smiling, too close to a woman whose eyes matched Emma's. Under it, a hotel receipt for the Soho Grand, a florist receipt from Lexington Avenue, and text printouts. One message read, "Don't tell Lily. She's perfect. I want this." Another, 11:30, back stairwell. My throat went tight as a fist. Ethan slid a small USB across the counter. "There's a folder called Harper Private and a file labeled Emma Birth Test," he said. He tapped a sticky note. "Password, Jonah's mother's maiden name plus 07/27/2011. Sloppy," he added. I wondered then how long sloppy could hide a life. I left First Meridian with rain on my coat and a folder that felt heavier than its paper. Home smelled like coffee gone cold. Jonah was already gone, his coat draped over the couch like a confession. Emma lay in a tangle of stuffed animals, crayon smear on her cheek. I plugged the USB into my laptop. The cursor blinked 9:32 a.m. A file opened. A video, timestamped 11:37 p.m. File name emmabirthtest.mp4. Jonah at a corner table, laughing. The woman's voice. Make sure she gets the meds. Don't let Lily know. A shot of a prescription pad. Dr. Mara Collins, Elmwood Pediatrics, dated April 2nd, 2023.
I noticed details like a detective. Coffee ring on Jonah's campaign mug, campaign flyer folded in his back pocket, a sticky note on his laptop reading fundraiser 12/3. Small things that stitch a lie together. I made a plan on a fresh note titled Plan and typed in caps 2 items. Request Emma's full medical records. Elmwood Pediatrics, Dr. Mara Collins, today. Confront Jonah at his campaign office, 214 Ashford Street, Cambridge, tonight, 8 p.m. Then I did something I hadn't intended. I hit record on my phone and spoke into it, hands steady where I felt anything but. If you're watching this and I'm not strong enough to finish, share it. Subscribe for Emma. Share for the truth. I stopped the recording and felt ridiculous and necessary all at once. Before darkness fell, I had 2 more small victories. At 3:15 p.m., Elmwood Pediatrics sent an automated reply confirming my request. They'd need a notarized release for records dated April 2, 2023. At 6:40 p.m., the USB's encrypted file cracked when I used the password. A PDF opened with invoices. Consulting, $12,500, 06/03/2024. Line items for cash transfers, and an email chain to a lawyer, Peter Lang, dated 07/27/11. Subject, transfer of parental rights. The words, amount to be transferred upon completion, $50,000, made my mouth go dry. By 7:50 p.m., I was 2 blocks from 214 Ashford Street, wind like scissors. The campaign office smelled of toner and cheap coffee. I walked in with the manila folder under my arm and felt the room tilt as Jonah's smile vanished like a sunset. I set the evidence on the table and watched him flinch, not at being caught with Naomi Lancaster, but at being named. Why? I asked, not the small word I'd rehearsed, but the big one. He started to answer. His voice was threadbare. Naomi, standing like a shadow beside him, had the look of someone who'd been doing favors in the dark for too long. You lied, I said. You used Emma's story for donors and sympathy. Jonah's mouth opened and closed. Outside, a siren wobbled in the distance. Inside, my list sat on the table between us like a ledger. My phone buzzed. Ethan. He told me to meet him at the Riverwalk Pier in 20 minutes. I left Jonah with his crumpling calm and walked into the cold, the river smelling of diesel and something metallic. Ethan handed me an envelope without looking me in the eye. Inside, an email chain between Jonah and Peter Lang referencing a private adoption, payments, and medical facilitation. The number $50,000 sat in bold like a verdict. Standing under the lamppost, wind and river around us, I understood 2 things with bone clarity. This was bigger than a single betrayal, and to stop it, I needed witnesses. I also understood something sharper. Revenge here would not be messy vengeance. It would be unavoidable, legal, and final. I put the envelope in my coat, thumbed my phone, and sent my recording to a reporter I trusted, with the subject line, Urgent, Harper Campaign. Then I texted Jonah, we need to talk. 8, be there. It was 7:58 p.m. when I pushed the glass door at 214 Ashford Street, the campaign office lights a smear against December dusk, the air cold enough to make my breath a white promise. Maria, the lone volunteer, glanced up from her laptop. Jonah's nameplate on the folding table looked suddenly thin. Jonah Harper, for city council. I set the manila folder down so the papers fanned like a revelation. He saw me, and for a second, the Jonah I loved and the man who'd built a lie collided in his face. Lily, he started, the word small. Naomi stood beside him, coat half-buttoned, hands folded like someone bracing for consequence. I let him try to explain and watched how explanations slouched away when the paper was obvious. The invoices, the hotel receipts, the Emma birth test video. Evidence that wasn't rumor, but arithmetic. You sold a story, I said. You used our daughter. Saying it aloud felt like throwing a lantern into a locked room. Jonah's jaw worked. I thought it would help the campaign. I thought we needed sympathy to get donors. I never meant. His voice cracked on the last word. Naomi's face went slack. Exhaustion, not malice, mapped her features. She spoke then, small and fast. He promised me it would stop. He said it was temporary. My phone buzzed. Ethan. He'd sent a text. Press is ready. The Riverwalk printout, the legal final USB, the Peter Lang emails, they were staged to land in the right hands. I felt the slow bloom of something like power, and a colder thing, responsibility. This wasn't private anymore. I did 3 things in quick order. First, I played a clip from Emma birth test on my phone. Jonah at a window table, laughing. The woman's voice. Don't let Lily know. Hearing it in the room made the air clatter. Second, I opened my email and forwarded the legal final link to Ava Chen and the Boston Beacon with a 1-line subject. Jonah Harper. Evidence attached. Third, I stood and looked Jonah in the eye.
You have 24 hours to step down, I said. My voice was steady. The words punched through his campaign's cheap coffee haze. Then I go public myself. There was a pause long enough for the heating system to hum. Maria's fingers stilled on the keyboard. Naomi's eyes filled. Jonah lunged for explanation, then for pleading. I let him do both and recorded it all, not because I relished him shrinking, but because the world needed proof. He begged, he blamed deadlines, he offered apologies like loose change. None of it bought back nights or invoices or the image of Emma's freckled face tangled into someone else's hand in a Polaroid. By morning, newsrooms were stirring. At 8 a.m., the Boston Beacon texted, "We'll run an inquiry. Can you meet?" At 10 a.m., Elmwood Pediatrics confirmed they'd released Emma's records to me. Prescriptions, tests, notes dated April 2nd, 2023. The legal trail was a clean thread. Peter Lang's name began popping up in leaked donor emails. Jonah's campaign manager resigned at noon. By 3, donors were asking for explanations. I held Emma that evening as if time could be stitched. She fell asleep with her crayon still clenched in her fist. Her breath smelled of apples and Play-Doh. I thought about revenge and how it had to be more than spectacle. I wanted consequences, shaped so that no one could mistake them for gossip. Legal filings, press conferences, witness statements. I wanted the people who helped build the lie to face the ledger. The last thing I did before bed was upload the legal final folder to a secure cloud and send a copy to Ava Chen with the subject Urgent, Full Files. Then I posted the short clip I'd recorded, the one that asked viewers to share and subscribe for Emma, with the caption, "Truth for Emma." It felt strange to ask for witnesses on the same night I dismantled a life, but witnesses are protection. When the first reporter called at 6:09 a.m. the next day, Jonah's phone rang off the hook. He tried to call me. I let it go to voicemail. The first voicemail was a tidy apology, the second a plea, the third a promise to make it right. None of them erased the invoices, the prescriptions, the recordings, or the small brass key that had started everything. There are moments when you realize the person you loved helped build a cage. There are other moments when you decide cages can be opened, not with fire, but with paper, witnesses, and consequence. Emma's laugh echoed from upstairs, and I felt the plan tighten into a path. I had made the choice to trade private loyalty for public truth. If this ends with Jonah's resignation and a courtroom, so be it. If it ends with donors returning money and a campaign dissolving, fine. What matters is that Emma's story will not be sold again. I thought of what Ethan had said at the Riverwalk. People would try to buy it back. Let them try. I had already set the ledger down. Outside, rain began as if on cue, slow and patient. Inside, I turned off the kitchen light, held my daughter, and slept, with the files backed up and the truth ready to be served.